Hey, welcome to another Overwatch guide here on Midnight Suns. Today we are going to be doing part 2 of our Ultimate Brigitte guide series. This video is a sequel to our original Ultimate Brigitte guide top 10 tips video. And if you haven't already checked out that video, I highly recommend watching that first so that you are all caught up to speed. In this video, I will be following up with 13 more Brigitte tips to help you play her well effectively. And so, without further ado, let us get started with this video guide. Alright, starting off from where we ended in the last video, let us begin with tip number 11, which is shield hopping. Now, this is a technique that can be done with both Brigitte and Reinhardt, but we will just be focusing on Brigitte here. So, Brigitte's shield is really great for blocking damage and keeping her alive, but it comes with a very big drawback. It reduces her movement speed by 30%. However, there is a way to minimize this weakness of hers, and that is with a technique known as shield hopping. So, the way to do this is first you start moving in any direction, then you jump and then activate your shield block, which allows you to block yourself from incoming damage while maintaining the momentum of your jump. And you can just keep doing this in repeated successions to close in on enemies or to escape to safety behind cover as needed. This is much faster than simply walking forward with your shield held up, and it is also much safer than running forward with your shield down since you'll still be shielded half the time when using this technique. The only times you probably don't want to do this is when you are dealing with enemies that will kill you immediately if you lower your shield for even a split second. Like Roadhog with his hook, or Sojourn with her charged railgun, or snipers like Hanzo and Widowmaker. Otherwise, use this technique as much as possible whenever it helps, and it will greatly increase your survivability as Brigitte. The 12th tip I have for you is to use a technique known as shield jumping. If you press jump immediately after doing a shield bash, you will be able to carry the momentum of the shield bash for a split second and get a slight boost in movement speed. You can also use this technique to get extra verticality in some areas like sloped environments. In some scenarios, you can also jump right before you do a shield bash and then jump again immediately after your shield bash to travel really far and high. For example, the map Junkertown has multiple sloped areas and objects that will allow you to dive onto those pesky Widowmaker camping spots using this shield jump technique. And if your team is actually playing a dive composition on this map on attack, you can actually dive with the rest of your team as Brigitte and really surprise your enemies. The 13th tip I have for you is to use your shield block wisely. As much as possible, avoid ever letting your shield break, as even 1 HP on your shield can block a Diva Bomb and a fully charged Sojourn railgun. But if you let your shield break unnecessarily, you'll need to wait for it to recharge to a minimum of 250 HP before you can use it again, leaving you extremely vulnerable for those few seconds. The only time you should really let your shield break is if you are using it to block an attack that would otherwise kill you, like a Widow headshot or a Sojourn's charged railgun or a Diva Bomb as previously mentioned. Otherwise, as much as possible, never let your shield break. And this brings me to tip number 14, which is to time your shielding properly during combat. Brigitte is arguably the best 1v1 support in the entire game. If you time your shielding during a fight properly, there are very few DPSs or supports that can beat you in a straight up 1v1 fight. So you need to know when to shield and when not to shield. For example, Brigitte is really good against Tracer, and to survive against her and punish her for diving onto you, you need to shield whenever she's shooting, and then when she's reloading, you need to immediately drop your shield and start attacking her. By doing this repeatedly, you'll be constantly activating your Inspire self-healing and shielding as much damage as possible, and it's going to be really hard for her to kill you. You can combine this with the shield hopping technique mentioned earlier, and you can really close in on her and kill her or force her to back off after using her recall ability. And this goes the same for most of the other heroes in the game that you end up fighting 1v1. Just time your shield and go on the offense and defense at the right times and you will be really hard to kill. You might not always kill your enemies, but you'll make it really hard for them to kill you. The 15th tip I have for you is to use the Bash Whip Shot combo to do huge burst damage and kill your enemies. Basically, to do this combo, you need to shield bash, swing your primary fire rocket flail once, and then use your whip shot. This does a combined total of 155 damage, which means you can instantly kill a Tracer or a baby Diva with this attack combo alone. This combo is great for finishing off enemies, and it is also great for starting off fights with and taking out a huge chunk of your opponent's health and forcing them to go on the defensive or run away. Alright, let us now move on to tip number 16, which is an extremely important technique known as bash cancelling. So, if you use your whip shot while in the middle of doing a shield bash, You can actually cancel your shoot bash midway, and this is extremely important when you are fighting around ledges, as you can prevent yourself from falling off the map and dying if you miss your shoot bash. So the next time you're about to accidentally go flying off the map with your shoot bash, remember that you can save yourself with your whip shot and cancelling your shoot bash with it. The 17th tip I have for you is to prioritize and choose your targets wisely. In most scenarios, you will want to be focusing on targets that Brigitte's kit is designed to be strong against. This pretty much includes any dive hero like Wrecking Ball, Doomfist, Winston, Genji, Tracer, and Sombra, as well as any enemy support. You should also listen to callouts from your teammates to focus down low health targets, and you should also protect your teammates by targeting enemies that are actively trying to kill them and peel damage away from them. By choosing your targets wisely, you will keep your teammates and yourself alive as much as possible, which is the ideal way to play Brigitte. Try to avoid 1v1s against tanks as much as possible unless it is Wrecking Ball, in which case he'll have a really hard time trying to kill you, and you can just go full offensive on him while still remembering to shield at the right times. Winston and Doomfist are good tanks to target to, but only if you are around your teammates and not 1v1. And that is because good Winstons and Doomfists in high ranks can be really deadly even to Brigitte. If you have your rally ultimate active while fighting a Winston, then you can pretty much just survive through his attacks for a long time, and you can just keep swinging away at him and activating your Inspire healing, and he pretty much won't be able to do anything to kill you. But otherwise, if you are in a 1v1 situation with a Winston or a Doomfist, and the rest of your team is dead, then you probably don't want to waste your ult even if you have it. So just try to play as defensively as possible, bumping them off with your whip shot to get out of their primary fire range, and regroup with your teammates for the next team fight. And also, if the enemy team has a really good Genji that is carrying their team, you can just switch to Brigitte and target him and punish him whenever he dives on your team. Do also note that your shoot bash goes through Genji's deflect. So if he deflects while he has 50 or less HP, you can just finish him off and make him regret attacking your backline. And it's the same thing for Sombra. Just turn around and use your shield to block her hack whenever you hear her trying to hack you, and then do a bash whip shot combo and force her to teleport away or even kill her. Alright, tip number 18 is to know how to use your rally ultimate offensively. So Brigitte's rally ult gives you and your teammates a bonus 15 overhealth every 0.5 seconds for a total duration of 10 seconds. And this stacks up to 100 overhealth. In order to use this ult offensively, you should activate it when your team is grouped up and then allow the overhealth to stack up for a few seconds at the enemy's front line, before you really start pressing forward and brawling into the enemy team's middle and back lines with the rest of your team, and steamrolling them with all your bonus overhealth. Do not wait till you are already in the middle of brawling with the enemy team before you activate your ult, because then the overhealth from your ult won't have time to stack up before the main fight happens. And it will be very easy for your enemies to just focus on you and kill you before your overhealth even has a chance to stack up. And you'll pretty much have just wasted your ult and died. And that brings me to tip number 19, which is to know how to use your rally ultimate defensively. If you're in the middle of a team fight and you manage to reach 100% ult charge right in the middle of the brawl, you can activate your ult to keep your team alive and really turn the tide of the team fight. However, as previously mentioned, the moment the enemies hear you activate your ult, you will become public enemy number 1, and they are all going to target you first in an attempt to kill you immediately before your ult is able to really stack up and provide any significant amount of overhealth for you and your teammates. In order to counteract this, you can hold your shield up for a few seconds immediately after activating your ult in the middle of the team fight. And this will allow the overhealth for you and your teammates to start stacking while you are protected behind the safety of your 300 HP shield. Not to forget, the Rally Ultimate gives you a 30% speed boost so you can hold your shield up while backing away from the enemy team if need be. Using Rally defensively is also a great way to counter Jungle Queen's Rampage Out and Ana's Biotic Grenade, as the overhealth given by your Rally is able to stack on you and your teammates even when they are purple. If you use Brigitte's Rally out properly in the right offensive and defensive scenarios, it can really win entire team fights for you and your team. The 20th tip I have for you is to just get used to all your cooldown timings. The biggest weakness of new Brigitte players is that they are simply not used to her cooldowns. So they are always doing things like holding their shields up while trying to spam their shield bash while it's on cooldown. And that little bit of extra wasted time could mean the difference between killing an enemy or allowing them to kill you. You want to get a real good feel of the cooldowns to the point that it becomes almost muscle memory, so you don't need to keep looking down to the bottom right of your screen to see if your shield bash or your repair packs are available in the middle of a big team fight when your focus should be on the enemies in the center of your screen. There isn't really any good way to get used to all your cooldowns other than playing a lot of Brigitte over and over again. So just play her in as many games as you can and force yourself to really memorize all her cooldowns instinctively. And this is one of the main reasons why one-trick players are so great at the heroes that they one-trick, because they just know the ins and outs of their characters and their cooldowns so well that their playstyle just revolves entirely around that hero and understanding it to the maximum. Alright, tip number 21 is to learn how your repair packs work and how to use them effectively. Brigitte's repair packs heal 110 HP over 2 seconds, and they are one of the few healing abilities in the game that are able to pierce through enemy shields. Meaning that even if a Winston jumps onto your teammate and throws a bubble down, you can heal through the bubble and keep them alive with your repair packs. You can also throw your repair packs on teammates preemptively before they get damaged, and you will want to do this especially when you see that your teammates are about to dive on an enemy. As mentioned in the previous video, you can even spam 3 repair packs on a low health tank to increase the healing duration to 6 seconds, and this will recover a total of 330 HP. The target priority of your repair packs will depend on who on your team is at greater risk of dying. And you need to be really careful with this because you don't want to just randomly throw out repair packs to low health teammates that might not necessarily need it as urgently as some of your other teammates. For example, a low health Roadhog might not be at as much risk of dying as a low health DPS because he can self-heal with his honey, while your DPS likely cannot recover their own health unless they are playing something like Soldier 76 or they are able to teleport away like Sombra. And as much as you can, try to keep your other support alive with your repair packs so that they can assist with pumping out more overall heals for the team. The 22nd tip I have for you is to make sure that you prioritize your own survival as much as possible. In most scenarios, purposely trading your life for an enemy life is probably not ideal unless you're able to trade your life for a tank, which in that case, it might be worth it. But otherwise, you should avoid trading your life unless you truly believe that doing so can win the overall team fight for your side. A good Brigitte should always have one of the fewest amounts of deaths amongst her team in any given match. And if you find yourself dying way more than any of your teammates, that means that you need to play a lot more defensively. And this means knowing when to shoot bash away to get behind cover to survive, making sure that you avoid taking as much unnecessary damage as possible by using your shield and environmental cover, and making sure that you are not frontlining like a tank unless your team is running a coordinated brawly composition that can complement that playstyle. Otherwise, always play defensively using your whip shot to trigger your inspire healing from afar, and wait for your enemies to come to you before you start laying the smackdown on them. And that brings me to the final tip I have for you in this video, and that is tip number 23, which is to remember to use your self-heal stacking to survive. Activating your Inspire ability by hitting an enemy recovers 15 HP per second for yourself, and if you pair this with the support self-healing passive that also recovers 15 HP per second, that means you can recover 30 health per second just by hitting an enemy and then holding your shield up or staying behind cover. On top of that, if you are playing a payload escort map on attack, standing near the payload will also automatically regenerate your health at 10 HP per second. This means that if you activate your Inspire and then hide behind the payload, you are gonna be recovering a stacked total of 40 HP per second between your Inspire, support passive, and payload health regeneration, which is even better than having a Zenyatta pocket because his Harmony Orb only heals you for 30 HP per second. And this is why Brigitte does really well on payload escort maps on attack, because if you just hang around the payload and force the enemies to engage you on the payload, you will have the attacker's advantage with all the massive self-heal stacking that we just discussed. Brigitte can easily be one of the most survivable heroes in the game if you play her well. And with survivability being the most important thing for supports in the game right now, a good Brigitte on your team can really change the tide of entire team fights for you with her consistent healing and damage output. And with that, it looks like we've reached the end of this video. I hope the 13 Brigitte tips that I've just shared with you have been helpful, and I think you are now ready to go out there and play what is truly the tankiest support hero that this game has ever seen. Thanks again for watching, and as always, stay gold everybody. Bye bye.